Welcome to the Tell Me More podcast, where we talk a little bit more about this weekend's sermon. We're going to jump into Revelation 2 and 3 today, and that's what we talked about this weekend. We talked about Revelation 2 and 3. Do you want to share a little bit about what those chapters
sure.
compile? Or
so Revelation 2 and 3 contain the letters to the seven, letters to the churches. So there's seven churches referenced in Revelation 1. They're all in Asia, which is not the continent of Asia, but the Roman province of Asia, which would be the western edge of Turkey. And so John addresses his revelation to those seven churches, but then starting in chapter 2, it's Christ himself speaking to these seven churches. So each kind of section begins, to the angel of the church of Ephesus, write. And so he's writing to this angel, which I didn't get into at all. We could talk about this. The interesting. I didn't. It was too much to try to think through or talk through with people. But the whole idea of the angel of these churches and what is that angel, and no one really knows.
There's a couple different theories around what that angel could be.
Yeah. Is it a guardian angel? I thought the best thing I read about it was that it was probably the idealized version of that church, the ideal representation of that church seemed like made the most sense. I guess the idea is that if it's a guardian angel, why is he correcting the angel? It's weird because we read, and I think probably rightly so, read the letters like they're written to these churches. And I think the churches would have taken them personally, like, but I have this against you, that you've abandoned the love you had at first, as he says to Ephesus. But it says, to the angel of the church at Ephesus, write. So why is the angel getting corrected for the sins of the church, if you will? So someone like, I forget which church father it was. I mean, it could have been, who knows, Tertullian or someone like this, but said, that angel was like the tutor, like the teacher, and if the student isn't learning well, it's the teacher's fault, and so that felt weird to me.
I mean, you get into all kinds of crazy stuff, about, because angel in
means
Greek
messenger. But then every use that John had of angel where he uses angel throughout the entirety of Revelation is referring specifically to an angelic being.
Yeah, it's always divine.
So that creates problems if you just want to make it. So one idea, what you're referencing, is the idea that angel means basically to the messenger. So what? So in other words, John's going to be handing these out to human messengers, not divine ones, and then they're going to take them to Ephesus, to Thyatira, Sardis, whatever. But where that breaks down is that every other reference he gives using that same word is divine. Why would he use that same word here for a human messenger? And I think that's a good question.
Yeah.
But then, so there's kind of mystery every which way you turn. Anyway. I don't think I have a good answer for that, but it's an interesting thing that you run into when you start studying Revelation.
I know, and it's a lot of fun to think about. So this weekend, you talked about two churches. You kind of bookended the seven with Ephesus and Laodicea, but there's five churches, other churches in the middle.
I hope you're not going to ask me what is said to the other churches, because I didn't really spend a lot of time thinking about them. I don't know a few of them.
But I did realize this week that I think I know all the names now.
Oh, yeah?
Like, okay, so Ephesus.
What? Ephesus? Wow. Wow.
Ephesus.
There you go.
Smyrna.
I like Ephesus better. That should stay in there.
Smyrna.
Yeah.
Pergamum.
Okay.
Thyatira.
Yeah. Which sounds like some kind of a new medicine.
Yeah.
Like a pill, doesn't it?
There's some side effects. And then
Thyatira has been known to cause in some people.
Sardis.
Yeah.
And wait, how many is that?
There's actually several good medicinal names, whatever you want to say. Sardis. I mean, there's a lot of potential
but
here.
Have you looked at
Pergamum?
the book of
These
Revelation
sound like these could be fantastic. Fantastic names for a breakthrough drug.
Yeah. So
did you get all seven? I was distracted.
Think I did. I know. I'm thinking about the side effects in the background here and how could we relate them to? I don't know.
Laodicea may cause, vomiting.
Vomiting, exactly.
That's pretty fun, actually.
I don't know. I think I'm missing one. But
do you?
Well, okay. Ephesus.
Okay, let's
I'm
get
sorry.
about Ephesus.
Ephesus.
I don't know what's
Smyrna.
Smyrna, yeah.
I think it's Pergamum.
Pergamum,
Thyatira. Oh, Sardis. Philadelphia.
Philadelphia, the good one.
Yeah. And Laodicea. So this is interesting because Seth brought this up in content. He read this in a commentary that the two bookends, Ephesus and Laodicea, they're all bad, like not all bad, but he's saying something to the entire church, like correction to the entire church. Then the two inner, like, so Smyrna
it's a chiasm.
and Philadelphia are the good ones. Jesus doesn't bring correction against these two. And then the three in the middle are like a mixed bag. So he has correction for some, but then he says, okay, but some of you are doing a pretty good job, which is kind of interesting when you think about the way these 7 churches are kind of structured. So,
Maybe.
Yeah. And we dug a little bit deeper into Smyrna, too. We talked about the possibility
we did. We thought about
of
we were going to preach
them.
Smyrna, but I was way too long as it was. So we didn't get into it. But Smyrna's an interesting church.
Yeah.
What they're going through, it's suffering a lot. Anyway.
Well, you want to jump into Ephesus a little bit and talk about that?
Let's do it.
So you talked about how it's a church that's they're fighting for the truth, but they've lost their love. Do we see that in church today? Like,
yeah. I mean,
in what ways?
Right.
Oh,
so no, it's okay. So maybe first I want to just start by talking a little bit about Ephesus. So for me, where it comes in, and you've got it right here, but it says, oh no, that's not the actual verses. No. I thought it was. I can't read from that distance. But yeah, I know your works, your toil, your patient endurance. I know you can't bear with those who are evil. It was interesting to me because it felt like so many of the words that are given, works, toil, like toil. I spent some time looking into that word, and it's just it's hard work. Like we don't use it that much anymore. But if you were ever I've been toiling in the backyard. You know, you would expect that you're coming in the house. You think about filthy.
Sweat.
You've been it's hot. You've been toiling away, and that is what it means. It's hard work. And so these Ephesians are working really hard. And he does at one point talk about, all of this for my name's sake, like this is, so all for the name of Jesus, all for the reputation of Jesus, it seems. And so there's all this effort. What was interesting to me was that you would have expected them to be weary, but he actually commends them that they're not weary. And that seemed interesting to me. I didn't spend a ton of time thinking about that, but it is interesting. After all this, you've been working, and you would have thought he was going to say, and you're tired, but don't give up.
Yeah, because that's what Paul says. He says, don't grow weary in doing good.
That's true, and yet the commendation they get is that they've not grown weary. And then he talks about testing these who call themselves apostles, who, as you were reminding me on Saturday night, these are people who say they're sent from God. So you get, so you're getting, and one of the things I was thinking is this, like, I feel like the church needs more of this today, not necessarily a critical spirit, but maybe let's call it like a discerning spirit, where we're not just so quick to accept. In fact, I don't think I said this in the service that you were in, but just, I think that we have we're theologically thin, as so many believers are, and so we don't know. We fall susceptible to an Instagram Christianity or a TikTok Christianity, where stuff sounds good. I remember getting this video sent to me. I think it was a TikTok video. Some girl had been on the Disney Channel. I don't even know who she is. Was basically going after the notion of the Trinity, and that this never appears in the New Testament, and that she's read some papers on this from different whatever, and it just, and I it's been a while now, more than a year since I saw this video, but I'm just like, it was. I mean, if you don't know any better, you may say to yourself, well, for instance, like I remember when I read Rob Bell's Velvet Elvis and him making the case that, or just even throwing the suggestion out there that maybe like the word for virgin means young, whatever.
Well, yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that she was like, if Jesus was born, if his father was truly biologically Joseph, would that change your faith? And I remember reading that book and thinking, yeah, no, I think I'd be fine with that. In fact, and there was even a part of me that would prefer that because I'm, that my logical, more what would you call it, scientific mind. I'm not a scientist by any stretch of the imagination, but I mean a mind more affected by a kind of scientific reality or a scientific explanation.
Yes,
that's probably it.
yeah.
It's much easier to accept. That what appeared supernatural on the surface isn't actually supernatural. And I remember feeling like, yeah, I could still accept Jesus as divine, not realizing that I'm now violating like a basic Christian creed.
Yeah, like a orthodox kind
so
of
like I'm
you
already
don't
outside.
want to give that up.
Right, but I mean, I didn't know any better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because, and I'm not, this is not me blaming my upbringing and my parents or any of that. It's just like, in the churches that we come from, there's not like a catechism. There's no like, these are the essential beliefs you have to
don't necessarily know what your die for issues are.
That's so true. You don't. And so I think we run the risk of being susceptible to things that, that are wrong, that sound right, but we don't know. And I think the best lies are like that. They sound mostly true. That's what makes them believable. So anyway, but this church in Ephesus was one that, like they did a good job. They were testing these people. And John writes in whatever, one of the first, second, or third John, you probably know. I think it's probably First John, test the spirits. And it's this idea of like not accepting everything that just shows up at your door, and not just buying into every teaching, but really like cross references against Scripture, against what you know, and does it bear out? And so the church at Ephesus seemed to be doing that. But this I have against you, Christ says, is that you've abandoned the love that you had at first. So the way I kind of posit all of this is that in our stand for the truth, because that's what I see, and maybe in our effort to build, because Ephesus was this kind of cosmopolitan, but also really sort of, I don't know, wicked city, you could say. You had all these temple prostitutes.
Of Artemis,
Not to mention many other temples there, which are filled with temple prostitution. And so the whole culture of the place is kind of flowing in the opposite direction of where these Ephesian Christians are trying to move. And I can imagine they would have felt like outsiders and outcasts everywhere they went. The Jews, of which they were probably by the Greeks, would have been seen as a sect of. You're a strange offshoot of the Jews, but the Jews had rejected them, and they didn't fit Greek culture. And the Greek, certainly not the Greek sort of religious structure.
Yeah, polytheistic, yeah.
Correct. So then where do they belong? So you're fighting, you can just imagine culturally fighting for a foothold to just not get completely swept away. Not to mention whatever persecution they may have faced that we don't know about. That we could like I was referencing last week, potentially, offering pensions of incense to a Roman, emperor or whatnot. So you have all of this, and so there's this stand, your works, your toil, your patient endurance. You've not grown weary. You've tested these who are, call themselves apostles, and they're not. And you've kind of kept this. You've held the line, but you've lost your capacity to love. And I think increasingly as we, feel ourselves maybe more Christians, I know. And depending on your generation, this is one thing. It's like if you're younger, you probably don't feel this the same way, but I know that so many of my older congregants feel this way, that the world has changed so dramatically in their lifetime, and the feel of being on the outside, where at one point they felt in the center, and all these kind of things. And now, the world seems to get sort of crazy, topsy-turvy, upside down. And so I think there's this question of like, who will tell me the truth? Who will speak the truth? Who will say what's right? And I think, with the whole cancel culture kind of thing, there's the whole idea that if I say the wrong thing, I could get canceled, all this. So we just felt it, and it's more than just religious. I think it's also political. You're feeling all of that politically. Yep. I think just anyone conservative in general is feeling, and that way, Christian or otherwise.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to conflate those two things, but there is some relationship between those two feelings, let's say, because maybe the overlap of values is there to some degree. So, at any rate, I think the idea is that in our desire, maybe our compulsion or to stand for the truth. And the way I envision it is like I'm holding this line, or I'm on this wall. I'm the one holding back whatever. And if we don't say something, no one else will. If we don't, stand up and advocate for fill in the blank, no one else is going to. And culture is sweeping so hard in another direction that it's going to take some people who are willing to. You know what I think is interesting, by the way, too. This is an interesting conversation that I don't know where this is going to go, and it may get me in trouble. But it is interesting that I think even politically, it's like and no doubt, I think it's no secret that so many evangelical Christians have kind of gone the way of Trump. And this is not about to be a criticism of that as much as it is. I want to point just one thought out, is that there's this sort of admiration for him that he's bringing a gun to a knife fight. You know what I mean? Like he's willing to, like he's not nice, let's say, and I think there's part of that kind of, and nice is, by the way, not a fruit of the Spirit, but also this kind of freewheeling, I'll do whatever needs to be done. I will get in the mud. I will do whatever. It's a
little scrappy.
Correct. Very scrappy, I think. And I think I'm wondering how that plays into what Christ is saying to the church at Ephesus. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, because I think there's this feeling that if I'm not willing to get mean, we're going to get swept away. So we got to get out the sword.
Yeah.
We've got to get out the sword. We got to fight.
Yeah. And that's that perpetuates this idea of an us and them kind of mentality. Like it's us against them, and you neglect the idea that I've been reading The Coddling of the American Mind. Yeah. So that's the third kind of idea that's really kind of threatens the culture at large, is this us and them kind of separation. And then he talks about identity politics in a really interesting way. And he says that there's two different types. There's the us and them kind, but then there's the kind that appeals to like the identity, human dignity overall. So Martin Luther King did this really well, where he appealed to a really positive, like identity in every single person. But then so Ephesus maybe was saying, we're all this way and you're all this way.
Maybe so.
And it creates a divide. Yeah.
We don't know exactly, and I would hate to get so specific that I'm prescribing exactly what was good, because we don't know. But what we do know is that they had abandoned the love they had at first. And you could ask, well, what love? Like love for one another, love for Christ, love for the community. What? And I think the answer. What are you thinking?
Well, it's interesting that in 1 John. It says that if you love God, you will love the brothers. Well, and that they could interpret that to mean the people within the church.
For sure, and I think that is what it means.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there are lots of verses that talk about that if I love God, then the love of the world is not in me. but then for God so loved the world. So how are we thinking of these two things? And I think the separation is between the idea of humanity and the wicked impulse of humanity to pursue its own end, to its own pleasure, to its own good, its own whatever. I started last night watching the Ken Burns documentary on the Dust Bowl from I don't know whenever. By the way, interestingly, I noticed that some of the people that are interviewed on there are the opening interviews of Interstellar.
Huh.
Yeah. Nolan used Dust Bowl.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Huh.
They're real people. That was interesting. I didn't
That's
realize that. I was
really
sitting there watching this. I'm like, I know that guy. And then it dawns on me, that's because I was sitting there watching it like, this feels so much like Interstellar, the beginning of Interstellar. And then one of the guys pops up, I'm like, that is the beginning of Interstellar. So it's from the Dust Bowl.
That's fantastic.
Those are real people. I remember I watched it recently because you kind of forget that that's in there and it shows up again at the end. But I'm like, these people seem so real. Like they don't, where would you find an actor with like one eye?
So you've just watched the beginning of the documentary?
I watched the whole doc. Okay.
I
watched like 111 minutes. It's like episode 1. Ken Burns is like long form documentary.
That makes me wonder if there's like this Interstellar is like a broad parallel of anyway.
Something. Well, so here's what's interesting because it is. But the point is this: like the whole creation of the Dust Bowl is the hubris of mankind.
Yeah.
We basically go up and plow up millions of acres in the Great Plains, and then and thinking that the rain, because then this is a part of the United States that's prone to drought, but it wasn't for like a period of 10 years or so, and so we just keep reaching for more and more and more and more, and then eventually, boom, the hammer drops, and they go into drought, and these dust storms just start rolling in like daily. It's horrific, and people are committing suicide because could you imagine like you're cleaning your house and every day and then it just keeps getting absolutely filthy and eventually you just get to the point where you feel like you're making no progress. I digress. It was I like Ken Burns. But what was interesting, and that's what they were talking about, it was these historians talking about it. It's essentially like the hubris of humanity is we don't know when to stop. We just keep going. Why was I talking about this? What does this have to do with Ephesus? Something.
I'm not totally sure. It was really interesting. Okay, where were we?
We were talking about what was going on with Ephesus.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what.
Oh, gosh.
Do you remember, Lindsay?
How did we?
We're talking about love.
Yeah.
So what love? Is it for God? Is it for the people? And then we got into...
what love? I don't. That's true. I don't know. I had an idea. It was a really good connection, and it was going to be excellent.
You said you started watching the Ken Burns documentary on the Dust Bowl.
Yes. And
and that's
the people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever. I got that was a sidetrack. Well, anyway, it'll come to me.
Okay.
But we don't know who these people were struggling to love.
Yeah.
It doesn't say, but it makes me. Oh, the world. The world. That's it. It was the world. We found it. So the world is. My point is, for God so loved the world, humanity, for God so loved the world, but do not love the world, which were later commanded, is more that Dust Bowl world. So the idea is not the Dust Bowl itself, but what created it.
Yeah.
The reach for more, it's the mentality that we have that we can be our own God, that we can decide things.
Yeah.
And so, and that's a pervasive has been from the very beginning of time, right?
Yeah, it's the end result of how we do things around here.
That's it.
Humanity has no limitations at all.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we just keep going, even to our own detriment.
Yeah.
And so and that's happening all the time because we think we know best.
Yeah.
That's the world that we're called not to love, because when you get swept up in that, you end up, and the Laodiceans were exactly that, had been swept up in a kind of...
It's the way of the world.
The way of the world. That's probably a better way to think about it.
Yeah.
So they didn't... Yeah. So when you're talking about Ephesus and who they loved or who they didn't love, here's my thought, is I think it's all of them. I think when you fail to love... I don't think you can disconnect. In other words, I don't think I can go, I love God well, and I tend to love my brothers well, but I have no compassion for the world. I just think that's not possible. I think one goes, that's why I think it's not, the love is not defined, because it really is, you don't love like you used to.
Yeah.
your capacity for love has waned.
Yeah.
And I think that's love for God. I think it's interesting. I think people who, and this is fun, when we get into this defense kind of thing, this harsh, judgy, kind of got our sword out, we must defend. I don't think, my experience is that doesn't seem to be motivated by love so much as it is motivated by fear. And this is not to say that we shouldn't defend things, but I think a lot of what I see is more a fear of change and a fear of loss rather than a love for the good. And I think that's what you're talking about with Dr. King, is that he was appealing to a better future and a better possibility. I think it's a greater motivator than it can be. It's interesting. You can mobilize a lot of people through, we might lose this, let's go get our axes and our shovels and our swords and our pitchforks and let's defend.
Yeah.
I think like history's filled with that kind of thing.
Yeah. I
just don't see that in the way of Jesus. Do you?
No, I don't. I don't think I do. I mean, he was like, okay, follow me to the cross, to laying your life down. And
not organizing an army.
No. I mean, definitely the opposite of it. I think this might have been, yes, you said this about Ephesus. You talked about in the garden when he grabbed his sword and he cut off
I said that
ear of the person
Malchus.
that...
The high priest servant, Malchus.
Yes. Yeah.
That when you go to the sword as a Christ follower, you end up cutting off the ears of the very people you should be trying to reach.
Yeah.
And so Jesus, in response, heals the man.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So we already get the posture of Jesus. Put the sword away. Let me heal you.
Yeah.
You're my enemy. I'm going to heal you.
Yeah.
But Peter is defend. And I think that's so. I think what we're looking for is this balance. So I think and this is the trick, right? We don't want our churches or our Christianity to become so soft. It's all about love, acceptance, tolerance, and this sort of thing, to where there's no border, to where we are not willing to stand and say, this is wrong. And I think there's a way to do that. I've encountered it. I've done it with people. Like I've got friends that I have disagreements with, where we view things like deep personal things, sexuality in a different way. But I can still sit down with that person. I don't have to rail against them or to, try to convert them on the spot.
Yeah.
But express a perspective. And I think we need that.
I keep thinking about this idea of sitting in front of a fellow image bearer. And it's when you become disconnected from understanding who God is and staying close to who Jesus is, that you begin to distance yourself from the people that Jesus came to save, and you stop seeing them as fellow image bearers. There's like, I don't know. I want to go deeper into that. I will later, when I'm by myself.
Sure.
That's really, really interesting, helpful. And then if we remember from where you have fallen, repent and do the deeds you did at first. That was hard, or that is hard for us because we want to have the feelings. I don't want to, it's so difficult to think about loving somebody because we equate loving with this kind of emotion, this warm feeling for another person.
It's a choice. That's the thing I think of is, so my older kids are presently, I should be careful going into too much of their personal life, but dating some folks. And you can't help but when like your kids are 19, 20, whatever, to think this could end in marriage.
Yeah.
This person could become part of my family. And so it's an interesting kind of thought to, I've not had to walk down this road before. Obviously, I married Heather and she was, kind of brought into our family, but never done it from this side. And the thought is, it's weird with your own kids. It's like they're yours, and they're like, I don't know. You can't help in so many ways but love your children.
Yeah.
But now I'm just, I mean, maybe for Heather it's a lot easier, maybe for you. But for someone like me, it's not that I don't like people. It's just the thought of you're now going to be someone that's very close in my life. Mm-hmm. You're going to become part of this family. I don't get, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't get to go, well, do I feel that way?
Yeah.
You just say, that's going to be the case because that's reality. Like, I'm making a commitment toward you.
Yeah.
And I think there's something great about that, like that commitment of love that I think does. Yeah, my anticipation, my expectation would be that the feelings in the relationship will come, when that day comes. And I'm not saying my kids are about to get married. I'm just saying, like, when that happens, my expectation is that I'm going to have to get to know a young man or a young lady and build relationship there.
Yeah.
But my anticipation is that, like, this will be someone that I will really love. But I choose that. I'm not waiting around to feel it, because if I waited to feel it, I would never feel it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, probably, like, that's not, and I don't mean that I'll probably never like these people. What I mean is just that if I just kind of stay at a distance and don't engage and don't do the works, like what Christ says to the Ephesians, do what you did at first. Like, if I don't start acting loving, right, toward, I don't know that I would ever. I mean, my intuition or my natural inclination would be to never speak to anyone that I didn't. I don't know. Why do I need to know? I mean, I know that sounds terrible.
Yeah, no, it's fine. So I think there's an interesting component here, because if your child loves this person, then there must be, like, then you feel that. Like, if your child didn't love them, then why would you have any obligation to love them too? In the same way, if Jesus didn't love these people, why would we have any obligation to love them too?
Sure.
And then there's the, like, on a practical side. So if you are moving towards someone and you're like, I have no warm feelings for them at all. I have an acronym in my head that just a practical.
Oh, wow.
We've talked about this
you have
before.
An acronym.
Well, no. Well, it's not the doing. So I was wondering, do you have any, like, practical kinds of actions? And then I have the one that I'm thinking of, but I want you to go first if you have anything in your head.
Like practical actions for what?
Like what? Okay, so I'll just say what. So it's this. There's this guy named Marcus Warner that I really like, and he talks about the intersection between theology and neurology. And I don't know if that just reveals how nerdy I am, but he has an acronym for how to engage with somebody relationally, and it spells the word cake.
Oh yeah,
so,
I think you've shared this before.
Yeah, we've talked about this a little bit. So cake is C-A-K-E. So C would be curiosity. A is appreciation. K is kindness. And E is eye contact. And so those are the things that if you're feeling relationally cut off from someone, or emotionally cut off from someone, do these things. Be curious about them. Find something to appreciate about them. Be kind.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, make eye contact.
I'm experiencing that. I mean, right now I'm getting to know some new friends of my children, and they just show up in your home one time, and it's like, okay, and but it does begin with curiosity.
Yeah,
it really does. Tell me about this or whatever. Oh, and learning to appreciate, and that's interesting. The show that comes to my mind is the one that you recommended to me, The Bear, which we have loved. I loved. And it's a fascinating show about a guy who's basically taken over his deceased brother's
Italian beef
whatever
shop
in Chicago.
Yeah.
And he's like a world-class chef, but totally messed up. Emotionally, and their family's all a wreck and this whole thing. But the character Richie is someone that's been interesting to me through that show. And one of the things that I've learned in that show, I think is fascinating, is, it was so hard to watch the first. These people are so dysfunctional.
Yeah. By the way, if somebody were to watch this show, they have to be prepared for
Oh, yeah.
Like
Oh, yeah.
crass language. Like if you
yeah.
ever worked in a restaurant, you
Hopefully
would
we're all
kind
adults
of,
here. We can you can read the TVMA and you can decide for yourself if you want to watch this.
Yeah.
But my point is, it was interesting. I hated that guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sitting there watching. I'm texting you because you're the one that recommended the show. And I'm like, this guy sucks. I want to fire him so badly. I never want to see him again.
When you said that, I was like, oh, I'm so excited for you to watch the rest of this show.
And I don't mean to ruin the show for anyone, but the redemption that you get in his life. And what I learned from it was just the thought that the commitment to someone, what can happen when you remain committed to someone in their good over time. And that's the thing I think sometimes about, certain like that sort of that they're Italian and that background creates this really the temperature's real hot
brash,
in all the relationships.
Emotional, yes,
but the commitment is also so high. Like I would kill for you.
Yeah.
I think I come from a different background, temperature much, much lower. And we do care about one another, but that commitment, it's easier to separate. It's easier to go, well, so be it. That's your decision. You go do your way, your thing, I'll go do mine. And the man, to me, I was moved by that commitment to one another and thinking through. You just see some of that as we dive into Laodicea. You're going to see what?
Sorry, I just think it's amazing because the moment he realizes that somebody is committed to his good,
he starts changing, isn't it?
It starts to shift.
Yeah, that's interesting, and it does make me wonder. Yeah, and I think that applies both in the church and outside the church. That commitment to one another, the commitment to relationships. Okay, here's a great story or a great thought. Like, those of you that know COTM, you'll know Pastor Lee Martin, and we hired him. He is best friends with one of my closest friends, Brian Job, and so I know Lee kind of via Brian. But Lee's this kind of guy, and I've got another friend that's this way, same kind of story. They just befriended me in this way that, like, I'm just not letting you go.
Yeah.
I'm just choosing to be a friend to you. And initially that was pretty annoying.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of my buddy Jared, who's like absolutely one of my closest friends in the world now. But he moved here from Wisconsin. I knew his family a little bit. And so because I'd been around him and done a little work for his dad, and they all live down here now, but I'd done a little work years ago in their church. And so he moves down here and, is going to the church. And he would come up and talk to me every Wednesday night after church. And every week he'd show up and I'd just be like, okay, here comes this guy again. And I'm like, I don't dislike him, but there's part of me that's just like, do you ever have one of those people that you're just like, when did we become friends? I don't remember like crossing that line, but it just happened.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
and he did, he never like made, I guess in his mind, it was just, we were friends.
Yeah.
And then he moved to Phoenix, and he would text me like, we were friends.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm coming back, and we're gonna have a party. I'd love for you to be there. And I'd be like, well, I mean, I guess I'll go. And then pretty soon it's like, we actually are friends. And then the more our relationship kind of continues, it's like, we're really good friends. Like, he's one of my absolute closest friends in the whole world. But I just think like he just remained committed to me, even when I wasn't necessarily all that committed to him. There's something powerful about like that level of commitment and to and in community to go, I am with you. I am not leaving your side.
It's really powerful.
And we're seeing that like even within our church right now. I think one of the things I'm most proud of about who we are as a church is our commitment to people. We can't. I mean, I can't be friends with everybody. Obviously, even in the pastoral team that we have, and we have a decent sized pastoral team. But you can't. You're not going to be best friends with everybody. But just even noticing when people are gone and calling them up and saying, "Hey, is everything okay? Is there anything that we can pray with you about?" And the amount of people who have come back into the church, just because we noticed, just because we took the time, we cared enough to stay committed to them. It's like I can, and you're not rubbing it in their face like I see you're trying to leave, but it's like, man, is there anything? And it's amazing the response. People are so grateful.
You know what's interesting? I was listening to a Ed Stetzer podcast, and he was talking. There was a guy who wrote a book called The Great De-Churching, and so talking about just people leaving the church, and the assumption is that the majority of people are deconstructing.
They're not.
But no, they're not. They're actually, they've lost a relational connection, and so
That's amazing.
Yep. So there's a lot of people who aren't attending church
Wow.
that say that they would return if they knew that they were going to have
wow.
a good experience relationally.
That so bears out like what's going on with Church on the Move right now. Because I don't know. Who knows? Like, I don't get we have no reporting or anything that says, people are coming for this and such reason, or they just love your sermon or whatever.
Yeah.
And I maybe that's the case and maybe it's not.
Yeah.
But I do know this, that the what we're doing is, and I think particularly with mega churches, and I don't know how many other church leaders listen to this, but the growth at all costs thing, I think, really burns a lot of people out. I need you to serve every week. I need you to be here, such and such time in the morning. It's like, it's this. I remember hearing this in a conference one time. This big mega thing, and I got no problem with big things. I don't. But there are these. What I have noticed is that there can be with big things a kind of one-way relationship where I speak and you listen.
Yeah.
And this guy was talking about loyalty. And I just remember, like, I don't remember all the points, but the feel that I had was, and it was resonating to such a degree with the pastors in the room. And I'm sure not all pastors feel this way. And I'm sure a lot of pastors feel betrayed and whatever, and I get all that. People can be really cruel, but this notion that your people should be loyal to you, and I just remember thinking, but that's a two-way street.
Yes, yeah.
You don't just get to use me up and then fire me when you want,
Right.
just because you're done with me.
Yeah.
It's like you can't demand loyalty and then want to conveniently get rid of someone when you stop liking them or they don't. And believe me, like I totally understand and feel the tension that we live in with, like job and church overlapping. It's really hard trying to manage people and this also be their church. So you have to be really careful hiring. But I remember like one specific instance years ago with a lady that we'd hired at the school who was just giving our people all sorts of fits because she wasn't organized and didn't fit into the lesson plan thing and this whole deal. And so the administration coming to me and saying, hey, we want to release this person and what do you think and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, look, you hired her. And if she's not organized at all, that's on you. Because you could have figured out whether she was before you, like she never represented, if she had represented herself to be something that she's not, but I mean, I know her. I think we've all known her for a long time. There's nothing about her that speaks organization. That's not her gift.
Yeah.
So why are you mad at her for never being for not being what she never claimed to be in the first place, right? And so it's this commitment thing. Like, and I get it. Sometimes relationships are going to end. We release people from employment. It happens, but there ought to be this kind of two-way, like, I want your good in a relationship that doesn't just, I think what happens sometimes in a church is that, especially bigger churches, it can feel like a transaction. Like, how many people can we get through this program so I can promote this large number and we can launch this other thing? And I just think the more we make the church about these kind of business metrics, the more people feel like a number.
Yeah.
And they don't feel like anyone's committed to them. And so there's a tension in that because I'm also called to be a good steward as a pastor. So how am I stewarding, like the potential that we have as a community and what God's blessed us with, but then also like remaining committed to these people. And so I think it's a great tension that you have to wrestle with. But I think one of the things that's really led to people buying into COTM is the feeling that we actually are really, truly committed to them. And the way that we can be, we are really, truly for you. And if you want to leave, you can, but we will do everything in our power to keep you here and to work through whatever it is that you're going through. I mean, occasionally there are situations where it's like, yeah, it's dangerous for you to be here. You need to leave. And there are some folks that are like that way. You have to do that. But the vast majority of people are not in that boat.
Yeah.
And when you remain committed, anyway, I think that's, you've abandoned the love that you had at first. I don't know. What, it's interesting.
Yeah. I think there's so much more we could say about the way that our commitment to people, that's a two-way street, leads to our ultimate goal, which is to help them be formed into the image of Jesus.
Yes.
There is a relationship between being healthy, in good relationship with people, and growing to be more like Jesus. And these two things are inseparable from each other.
Yeah.
And,
Which means if you're going to do that, you're going to have to be willing to get down in the mud with folks.
Yep.
And you're going to have to walk through really frustrating seasons where people aren't going to listen to what you say, and all of it. And that is what we deal with. But I think what we found is the long game works. The commitment over time does bear fruit.
Yeah.
So
let's talk about Laodicea.
Let's do it.
Yeah. I thought that, so when I grew up, it was the hot and cold thing. Like, Jesus would rather you be like, not care about him at all. And that's the cold. That would be better than for you to be lukewarm and be apathetic.
I did this Sunday. I didn't do any of that, but I was like, how many of you heard like a sermon on not being a lukewarm Christian? And I mean, nearly every hand goes up. Everyone's heard it. Yeah. That's the typical interpretation of these verses. Yeah,
but the understanding the cultural context of a place makes a big difference. We've found, with all of these churches.
Sure.
There's like, he's speaking specifically to the place that they're in, the cultural moment that they're in, and it's no different with Laodicea.
So there's not enough. Yeah, what's cool about this is that there is enough history preserved for us to know in general what was going on there. Maybe not all the specifics, but enough. And that's really nice that there's enough history that we can read. So about Laodicea specifically, what we read, kind of their water supply situation was interesting, in that they had no water supply in the city. So the way the city was situated is it was on a east-west trade route. You had to kind of go through Laodicea, which made it a really prosperous city. If the caveat was that they needed peace. So you have to imagine, all these empires sweeping through, the Persian Empire, the Babylonian Empire, the Assyrian Empire, whatever. And so, every few years, one empire conquers another. These cities get destroyed, when these armies come through and they lay siege to a city. Laodicea was particularly vulnerable, you could imagine, because they had no water. So they had to import their water in from about 5 miles away. And so all you had to do as an opposing army is cut off their water supply, and the city's yours. So once Rome took over, and you end up with Pax Romana, which is this kind of peacetime that Rome brought, Laodicea is able to thrive, right? Because they don't have to worry about empires coming through and sieging their city. I don't know.
Sieging?
Whatever. That's not a word. Seizing is a word.
Seizing.
Whatever. Putting their city to siege. Whatever.
Either sieging.
Doesn't matter. It's kind of like whatever was it? Hepatitis? I don't know if that was what you said. Something or other.
Oh, I don't remember how I said
Ephesus.
Ephesus.
Yeah, it's kind of like Ephesus. They were sieging. Ephesus. There you go. But anyway, so they got really wealthy. So they were a financial and banking center. The history tells us that in 68 AD there was an earthquake there, devastated the city. They refused Rome's financial help in rebuilding the city, because they had enough money on their own. Well, we're good.
Oh, we got this.
Yeah, we got this. So they're very wealthy. They made these garments. Something about their wool production. So William Barclay was the one that I read this around. They had these garments that they made. They were like a dark wool, like a black kind of outer cloak sort of thing. somehow desirable. Don't know why, but they were.
I thought of, have you seen the Lorax?
I've not seen the movie, but I remember reading the book.
Everybody needs a sneed.
Yeah, a sneed. Or
It was like a weird scarf thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the
like a snood.
Laodicean
A snood is a real thing.
version. What is that?
A snood? What is a snood? I think it's like a scarf.
Oh,
It's weird,
okay.
but it's funny. Doesn't it? You ever thought about wearing a snood? Doesn't it feel? It feels
Okay.
uncomfortable.
Well, yeah, like just the word.
Yeah, it's a strange.
You know.
I'm unfamiliar with what a snood is, but a
I don't
sneed
know
is
what
a sneed is a
in the Lorax, it's
Yeah.
a weird scarf with
What
a lot-
happens?
So, well, everybody needs one.
yeah, and
So there's these trees. What kind of trees are they? Are they
Yeah.
truffula trees?
Yeah.
And the only way you can make sneeze is
to-
with the trees.
So
and
it's
then
like
he
an
cuts
environmental
down
tell?
all the trees. Yes, it is. But everybody has one, and then then air becomes
And
like
then the
a
end of the world.
commodity, kind of.
Really?
Kind
The
of.
air?
The air, because the trees are gone.
Oh man!
And so air becomes like something you can buy, and then there's one truffula
story.
seed left. I like the movie, but
that's
and
the movie.
And yes, this is the movie.
Oh,
but
so
it's
that's
a good movie.
Really sounds a little
Maybe
stupid.
it's the wow.
Does to me.
You might be surprised. Watch it
not
with
gonna watch
your youngest child.
No, that just sounds boring. And a little
Okay.
preachy. But anyway,
Back to
Sure.
Laodicea.
sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry I ever brought
I'm not
up-
preachy,
brought
but
it
that
up.
movie is.
So
No,
Black
I was interested.
Wolf-
Where does the book end? How does the book end? It doesn't end with. I was like, that is a really long book.
They get
Have you read the book recently?
No, the Lorax.
Okay. Oh,
It's a Dr. Seuss book.
I know. I like Dr. Seuss books, but
Okay.
I remember the cutting. I remember the scene with the
cuddling of
trees all cut
American
down. I don't
Mind and
remember
the
what's
Lorax.
next.
What?
I remember the illustration of
Yes.
the. Anyway,
I bet
whatever.
it's similar.
I'm sure, but
I would
that selling
imagine.
air, that sounds like some stupid thing that a studio came up with, not part of the book.
I don't know. We need our fact checkers to check how the book ends. Actually, the
Okay,
actual Lorax.
so where are we?
I'm sorry,
Laodicea.
Laodicea.
Oh, they're wool.
They're wool,
Yeah.
very fancy. You couldn't get a Laodicean cloak anywhere else.
You had to go
basically.
there. That's
Yeah.
it. So it was like exclusive to them. And then
Yeah.
they were a medical center. They had eye salve and ear ointment, this kind
Yeah.
of thing. So when Jesus speaks to them, he says, well, that's actually in his recommendation of what they do. He says, you say I'm rich.
Mm-hmm.
I have prospered. I need
Yeah.
nothing.
You
Not
look at the
realizing.
pronouns. I. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Not realizing that you are in this like run of, poor, wretched, pitiable, blind, and naked, or whatever it
Yeah.
is. I mean, it's not good.
Yeah.
And then he says, I counsel you to buy from me gold refined by fire, a white cloak, so that the shame of your nakedness will no longer be seen, and ointment for your eyes, or eye salve, I think is the way that ESV says it, so that you may see. So, yeah, I think, historically when I've read about Laodicea, I've been thinking about this kind of apathetic Christianity, this kind of lukewarm, connected to wealth and materialism. And that sort of the idea is that our materialism is making us apathetic, and we need, and I think that's like not too far off the truth.
Yeah.
To some degree, but I
Yeah.
don't think it's a warning against materialism. I think it's a warning, and this is what I like after really thinking about this text for a while last week. I think it's a warning around self-reliance, and I came to that conclusion based off the remedy that is offered. So the remedy is buy from me a gold refined by fire, buy from me this white cloak, cover the shame of your nakedness,
Yeah.
and this eye ointment. And I was puzzled along with Seth, our pastor at West Tulsa, around the phrase "buy from me" because it felt weird.
Yeah. When Dr. Vlachos was here, I was like, hey, This is buy from me.
Yeah.
And I just never felt like we got really
No.
down to the bottom of it.
Why does Christ say, buy from me? It seems so strange that he would position himself as a store from which I could buy.
Because you're not supposed to do that
things.
with
Right, because you
Jesus.
can't, exactly. Because what I get from him is a free gift of grace.
Yeah.
Why is he saying it this way? And with some thought, it started to occur to me that he's flipping the nature of the relationship. So once I understand that Laodicea is this banking center, is this they're selling these garments and this eye ointment, then you realize that their whole world revolved around people coming to them. They had what people needed. They were the ones selling. They were the ones with the supply, and everyone else. So the way I said it was like, when you have what people need, you not only become rich, you become powerful because you control what other people need. And there's a certain self-importance, right, that goes along with all of that because people need you and you feel like somebody and you're important. People are coming to you. And he flips it around and says, buy from me because you have nothing. Which is interesting. So he's flipping the nature of the relationship. You think you're supplying, but actually you're the one in need. And that seems to be the whole kind of idea that's happening here, is that they don't see what's really going on. So you say, I'm rich. You say, I have prospered. You say, I have everything I need. Not realizing. It's the emperor with no clothes on. You don't realize you're naked. You don't realize you're poor, wretched, pitiable, all of these things. And I think so for me, I'm realizing he's flipping the nature of the relationship and counseling them to buy from him, which tells me, so if that's here's how I get there. If that's the prescription, then that tells me the diagnosis. Buy from me means you've lost your connection to me. You think you're doing this on your own, but you're not. You need to come back to me and get from me what you need. You've lost. So immediately I'm realizing this is about self-reliance. This is about a people who think they're doing this on their own. And of course, when you go back to like John 15 and you read what Jesus said, abide in me and I in you. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Yeah. But he says, like, I am the vine, you're the branches. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Basically, if you separate a branch from the vine, it dies. This is the whole idea. Come back to me. Buy from me what you need. Otherwise, I'm going to spit you out of my mouth.
Right. It goes back to that source or that water component to the beginning of this. Like, this is what he was saying is if the Colossae water was cold and refreshing.
Let's unpack that for a second so people know. So on one side of Laodicea was Colossae, which was, I think it was the hot springs there. I might be wrong.
Was the other one?
Hierapolis.
Hierapolis, that's what I thought.
So Colossae, which is where Paul wrote.
That was the refreshing water.
Do you? I think, read it. It's in there somewhere.
Wait, it is. You're totally right.
But let's just say it this way. On one side of Laodicea is a hot spring, a mineral spring that has healing properties. And then on the other side, or actually to the north, is this cold spring or this cold mountain water that's coming down that's all cool and refreshing. What is it?
It's Colossae.
You were right. Colossae's to the east?
11 miles to the east was Colossae with its cold mountain water.
Oh, I had that wrong. All right, whatever.
But okay.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The idea is still the same. So you had cold mountain water to the east in Colossae, and then you had
some
hot springs in Hierapolis, which is to the north of them.
6 miles to the north.
Yeah.
And they were known for, like, they were therapeutic, they were medicinal.
Right.
So people would get in and, like, I don't know what.
So the Laodiceans would have been familiar with this. I've got cool water over here. I've got this hot water over here, and both have their purpose. So the way I was describing this to, I don't know, anybody that listens to outside of Tulsa may not know what I'm talking about, but maybe here's you got a hot tub. I'm sore. I need to get in a hot tub. You got a cold mountain stream on a hot day. Beautiful.
Yeah. Did you know that cold plunges are really popular right now?
Oh, it's so good. And I did one in Colorado. So many of them. I got in these cold streams and I felt fantastic. Okay. But anyway, and then I think about the Arkansas River. So you got a hot tub, a mountain stream, and the Arkansas River. Now, if you're not from Tulsa and you've not seen the Arkansas River before, here, it's muddy. It's murky.
It's really sad.
It's gross. It stinks sometimes.
Yeah, no one's going to get
No one
refreshing
wants to
there.
go. No one wants to go get in there. And so the idea is like, you can think about it like a hot tub, nice, cool mountain stream, nice. This, yuck.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Christ is saying. He's not saying, look, hot is good and cold is bad, but I wish you'd just pick one. He's saying, hot has its value and cold has its value, but you're the Arkansas River.
Yeah.
There's nothing. I don't know what it's sincerely. He's saying you disgust me.
Yeah. Did you know? So okay, the water that was coming from Hierapolis, by the time it would get to Laodicea, some people wouldn't realize that it was rancid at that point, and some visitors would drink it, and it would induce vomiting.
So
in them.
really,
They would barf. Yeah.
Wow.
Because
I wonder how we know that. Is that Daryl Johnson?
Daryl Johnson, yeah.
I wonder how he knew
I think
that.
he was quoting Mounce. You know who Mounce is? Bill Mounce. He wrote like the book on Greek. So if you want to learn Greek, Mounce would be your guy.
Yeah. I know who he is. Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So fascinating.
So what we're saying is the message to the church at Laodicea is a message around self-reliance. And the idea that when I disconnect myself from Christ, I become useless. I lose my purpose. And Jesus talked about this. Branches in me that don't bear fruit are cut off and thrown into the fire. It's very similar to, I will spit you out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Very, very similar.
It also reminds me of like when a salt loses its flavor, it's no good for nothing except to be thrown out, trampled underfoot. Yeah.
That's the idea. That's what he's saying. So the warning is a warning against self-reliance. So let's talk about that for a second. I love this statement from Chris Turner, who's one of our pastors around here. He said this a few weeks ago, teaching on Proverbs, or from Proverbs on money. And he said, nothing can make you feel like God quite like money. And I think that's really true. That's what's happening in Laodicea. They've prospered financially, and that prosperity has led them to feel as though they're winning. And I said this to the church this weekend, because some people, and it's unfortunate, down through even in just my lifetime, you'd have different streams of the church. One might teach that if you're poor, you're more like Jesus. And some would say if you're rich, you're more like Jesus. And I would say neither. Neither is necessarily a sign of God's blessing. To be poor is not necessarily to be rich, is not necessarily to be more like Christ. And to be rich is not necessarily a sign of God's blessing, though some people ascribe that way. In fact, one of the things I said like this weekend I think is worth consideration is I think the enemy would be fine with you having a lot of money and may even open up opportunities for you to have a lot of money, so long as it leads to you being disconnected from Christ. That's his motivation. He doesn't care whether or not you're rich or poor. He just wants you to be disconnected from Christ to oppose you. That's it. He doesn't. And so I think the thing about riches is that they can make you feel self-sufficient. And so I no longer need Jesus in the same way. The thing that was convicting to me about this is that as we are growing as a church right now, and we are seeing really exciting growth, and for someone like me who stepped in to, after my dad started this church and to feel like I was failing for so long, and now to see the church growing, it feels so good. What I came away with from this weekend is I really need to make sure I don't lose that sense of desperation and dependence on Christ that I had when I felt like we were losing. That it would be really easy to kind of disconnect a little bit and feel as though we know what we're doing, rather than trying to stay connected to Jesus.
Yeah, to rely more on strategy than the Spirit.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I pray a little less, repent a little less, know a little more, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's a fast track to becoming the church at Laodicea. And so what Christ says to them is, verse 20, the often misunderstood verse is, behold, I stand at the door and knock. He's not speaking to someone far from God who's, Christ is saying, let me have a relationship. But he's speaking to the church. He's standing outside a dead church saying, will you let me in?
Yeah.
Because we can still do something here.
Yeah.
It's not over for Laodicea yet.
Yeah.
He's still pursuing them. Those whom I love, I discipline and rebuke,
Yeah.
So
He's standing in the midst of the lampstands.
Yeah.
And he's close.
Right.
But yeah, interesting. Can we talk about Kirk Cousins?
Okay. Absolutely. I would love to talk about Kirk Cousins.
So I don't watch football.
Right.
But I was flying home from somewhere and I was bored. I was sitting in the airport and I was like, there's a show.
I am surprised that you would watch that show.
I know. So was my husband. Matt was like, what are you doing? I was like, can we watch quarterback? And he's like, what? And then he's like texting his friends. He's like, Casey is showing me this. She's showing me football that she thinks is interesting.
What do I do?
He has no idea what to do. I'm asking him to explain downs.
Oh, wow. So that's
help
where
me
your
understand.
Yeah.
Well, I understand now.
Okay.
But I didn't before. But yeah, Mahomes, I mean, I was enthralled watching him like throw in the bizarre way, yet effective way that he throws. Anyway, but Kirk, he was kind of this slow burn through the series where you realize, this guy is fantastic.
Yeah, you really love him.
Yeah.
So I started watching the show myself just like a week or two ago, just kind of trying to get a football fix before the season started. And so it follows Kirk Cousins and Patrick Mahomes and Marcus Mariota through last season. So there was a scene, and we were talking about this earlier, so wanted to bring it up, and it's worth bringing up, is this scene at the end where after this long season, and I mean, you really do get a sense watching the show just how long grueling and painful, the physical exhaustion. You could just imagine playing football. I mean, it's a joy to be able to do that, I'm sure, for those guys, but also the toll that it takes just being hit. I can't imagine what they go through bodily to be able to play that game.
Yeah.
And so anyway, they've had a good season by all accounts. They made the playoffs. I mean, it was a good year, and they're really hopeful. And then they get to the playoffs and they lose. And if you remember, last year they lose to the Giants. And I'm not a Vikings fan. I wasn't a Kirk Cousins fan. Not that I disliked him. I didn't think anything about Kirk Cousins.
Right.
He went to Michigan State. I'm a Notre Dame fan. They were historic rivals. I didn't like Kirk Cousins in college just because of the team that he played for. Knew nothing about the guy personally. So, I'm watching this show, and you can start to see, and I kind of knew already, maybe before going in. I don't know how I knew, but just knew. Like Kirk Cousins he's a believer in Christ. Mm-hmm. But that just becomes more evident the deeper into the show that you get. This one scene just wrecked me, though. After losing to the Giants, you can just see he's devastated. I mean, all the work, months of work, and all the hits, and all of it. I mean, it has to feel in some sense like a total waste. It is a job, and you're getting paid, but also you have one goal. And you want to win this Super Bowl. And, I mean, they just didn't get really all that close. And he's on the podium after the game, talking to the media, and he's like, this one hurts. He's like, I can't remember a loss that hurts more than this one. And then you see him, and this is the thing I loved about Kirk Cousins, is he gets in the car with his wife, and they get in a Ford Expedition. And it's like, nothing wrong with having a nice car, but it's just like, these are normal people. Mm-hmm. And they drive to it's a nice house, but it's a fairly normal house. And they go inside, and his boys are upstairs taking a bath, and he's going in to check on him, he and his wife, and they're talking to him, hey, whatever, and just being dad. Mm-hmm. This is after the worst loss he would have said of his career. Mm. And then he goes and sits down with his son in his room to say goodnight and this whole thing, and they're reading a story. And they read some Sports Illustrated story, the Sports Illustrated book of Why or whatever. And then he's like, all right, you want to sing and pray? And he's, what he's doing. He's like, any parent knows what this is. If you tuck your kids in, or I don't call it tucking them in, but saying goodnight. I go in and say goodnight to my daughters, my two youngest still. And that's what he's doing. And it just cuts to the shot of this window. And it's like, Christmas lights and snow on the ground and all this. And so you don't see any of this, you're just hearing it. And you just hear him start singing, on Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. I'm just about to lose it listening to him sing that song in what must have been a really painful evening. And you could just almost feel him, like the will to sing that song and remind himself that that is what is most true about him, not whatever this is. And what struck me was this, particularly as it relates to Laodicea, is that in this life, and this is the thing about Laodicea, is that not everything is as it seems. These people are rich, but they're not that rich. They're not rich. They're poor, and they're not clothed. They're naked, and they can't see. They're blind. Everything is not as it seems. And that's the way of Jesus. The wide and easy path does not lead to life. It's the narrow and hard path that does. It's the counterintuitive, you could say, way of Jesus, the upside down way, or you could say right side up, but we live in an upside down world way of Jesus. The blessed are you when you mourn, or all of this stuff that's like, wait a minute, what? Blessed are the poor in spirit. These things that he says that are just like, wait a minute, that feels upside down. What are you saying? Love your enemies. What are you saying? That doesn't make any sense. That's not what I know. And here's what I was thinking about with Kirk Cousins, as I thought, at the end of the day, I mean, Kirk has a job that only 32 people in the world have. Like, he's pretty good at what he does, so let's not kid ourselves. He's no slouch. But also, he's probably not going to go down as one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. He's a good quarterback. But he's probably not going to have all the accolades. He's certainly not the physical specimen that some of these other guys are. I mean, you mentioned Patrick Mahomes, who's in this series with him. I mean, the guy's amazing. What he can do, incredible. And Kirk's not that guy. He's got some ability, clearly, but he's not that guy. And yet, at the end of the day, like the story, that the reality, he may not be the champion this side of eternity, but in the next life, I have to think who he'll be will be greater than who he was here. And how things appear to be are not always how they are. Yeah. And it just is a reminder, I think, for all of us of what we should value. It's all right to grow your business, and it's all right to pursue, more in so many ways, but not at the expense of losing that connection to Christ. And I think what we never want to do is get in a position where we're willing to trade a material success and a sort of short-term honor, a short-term esteem for an eternal destitution, which is what Laodicea was running guilty of doing. And it was just a lesson to me that, like, stay humble, stay connected to Jesus, and I think the rest will take care of itself. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we've got 2 churches that we covered this past weekend, and then I think what we're planning to do is just release 5 little videos this week over social media, kind of like outlining.
Going into the other churches?
Going into the other churches. Just because there's something, like you said, there's something for us to take away from each of these.
Yeah. God speaks in each of them.
And then next week,
Revelation 4 and 5.
Yeah.
I can't wait. Those are the best. Those are like 2 of my favorite chapters.
Just gonna go into the throne room.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. We'll see you next week.
Yep.